Hey everyone, I'm Evie and welcome back or welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing how I was able to improve my English Advanced mark from 75% for the first 3 tasks in Year 12 to 90% in the final HSC. And trust me, if I could do this, you can improve too. English Advanced was by far my most challenging subject that I faced in Year 12, and I honestly thought that I would never be one of those students who gets English, but by the end of the year, it somehow clicked. So today, I'm going to share all the specific strategies that helped me go from struggling to feeling more confident. Here's what actually worked for me, what I wish I knew sooner, and some of my personal resources too. Let's get right into it. My first tip is to actually understand and pay attention to the rubric of the module that you're studying. When you're writing an essay, you're not just writing a generic essay about the text that you're studying. It has to link directly to the module that you're currently studying to make sure that the markers can really see your depth of understanding. To help with this, I printed each rubric out for every module, highlighted the key terms, and made notes in a Google Doc. I really recommend that you do this exercise because it helps you deepen your knowledge about your module, but I'll include some screenshots of my own notes just so you get an idea of what this could look like. Every essay I wrote from that point forward had to link directly to the key terms in the rubric, and this helped me stay on track so that the markers knew that I wasn't just writing any old generic essay. My second tip is to build your notes around a few common strong themes. The texts that are chosen for us to study in English Advanced are very deep and rich in meaning, and therefore have many themes that you could explore. However, if you tried to go into detail about every single theme in a text, you'd simply run out of time. I fell into this trap where my notes were pages and pages long, filled with quotes and analysis and context about every single theme in the text. But at the end of the day, you only have 40 minutes to write an essay, and you can't include that many themes in an essay. So what I'd suggest is picking around 3 themes that you feel really strong and really confident in, and focusing the most of your study on these themes as you can apply them to your final essay. To help with making my notes on these solid and strong themes, I of course use my class notes, but I also used this Excel workbook and the ATAR Notes study guides on the text that we were studying. These resources contain great quote banks and strong explanations with links to context and how you could link this into an essay, which I found really helpful. If you're still struggling to understand how your chosen theme or how your quotes could actually link into an argument for an essay, I really recommend checking out the NESA HSC exam workbooks. In these books, they have actual exemplar essays that were written in the HSC by students under timed conditions, and these essays got the top band marks. I found this book in my library and I just flicked to where our prescribed text was, and I had a look at what students wrote on our prescribed text so I could see how I could make a similar argument. But of course, you're not copying what they've written, just getting an idea of what they did, just so you can emulate a similar writing style. Now, I know that my next tip may be a bit controversial, but it's just what I did. Doesn't mean that this is what you have to do, but I just want to be honest. And it's that I made a base essay for each module and memorized the general ideas of my essay so that I could apply it into the HSC. Because I knew that for me, a student who wasn't naturally good at English, I couldn't just sit down and write an essay from scratch. I know that there are some incredible students who can do that, but for me, I knew that my best bet was having a generic essay that I could mold to a variety of questions. As for structure, my Common Module and Module B essays had an introduction, 3 body paragraphs and a conclusion, and my Module A comparative essay had an introduction, 4 body paragraphs with alternating perspectives on text A and text B, and then a conclusion. To actually write the essay, what I did is I picked a general theme that was present throughout the text, and then each body paragraph had a different perspective on that theme. For example, for the Common Module, I studied the Crucible, and my general theme was fear. In my first body paragraph, I looked at fear on an individual level. In my second body paragraph, I looked at collective fear and collective hysteria. And in my third body paragraph, I looked at the moral consequences of fear-based accusations. In each paragraph, for every module, I included at least 3 pieces of analysis. Just as a general definition, analysis is when you have a quote, a technique, and you link it all back to your general argument. However, in a paragraph, I would aim to have 3 to 5 quotes. Now you may be thinking, if you're doing 3 pieces of analysis, how do you have more quotes? And what I would do is I would use sentence filler quotes, where you can use 2 quotes to make the same argument, or as you're writing, you put in a quote instead of using your own words. Here's an example of how I was able to use 2 quotes in one piece of analysis in my Module A essay. Even though one technique and one quote is technically being analysed, I still used another as a sentence filler, but it also shows that you have more understanding of your text and you're making in-depth links. My next tip is to include links to context in every paragraph, not just in your introduction. Linking to historical values and how the author has reflected it or challenged it in their writing really shows markers that you're thinking critically about your text, and that is what is required for a top band response. Here's an example of how I was able to link context into my analysis in my The Crucible essay. My next piece of feedback is honestly what helped me improve the most in English, and this is seeking continual feedback and continuing to refine your essay until it's in an A range. What I used to do was write my essays and just refine them on my own and not even seek teacher feedback because I was scared of what they would think. But once I actually started handing in practice essays to teachers before exams and before assessments, and even seeking tutoring to get that one-on-one help, it helped me so much, because truly, you're never going to know how to improve if you're just trying to do it on your own. Once I'd completed my base essay at home, I'd submit it to my teacher and they would give me feedback. Using that feedback, I'd then refine my essay and then hand it in again to see if there were any other further weak spots that I needed to improve. Once you continue to do this process, you will eventually get an essay that's in the A range, and this could be your base essay that you bring into exams, of course with adaptation included to the question on the day. My next tip is to do timed practice of your base essay without adaptations just yet. You should be able to write your base essay in about 35 minutes to give yourself at least 5 minutes for adaptation on the day. I found that for me, I could only write about 750 words in 35 minutes, and I stuck to that limit. Even though I looked online and I saw that many students who were getting band 6s could write over 1,000 words in that time, I just had to know my limits, and if I tried to write 1,000 words, I just simply wouldn't complete the paper. So I really recommend that before you sit down and you're like, yep, I'm happy with this, you first have to sit down, write it under the time limit, also semi-memorized to make sure that you can get it down in time. Now, once your base essay is in good shape, it's time to start adapting it to HSC questions. What I'd do is I'd get up trial papers and actual HSC papers up on my laptop. I would take a look at the essay question and I would draft thesis statements and topic sentences if I didn't have time to write out a whole essay. Your thesis and your topic sentences are what's going to need the most adaptation on the day, so being able to think quickly and think on your feet and quickly write a new one is really a skill that you can develop over time. I found this so challenging at first, and it would take me like 10 minutes to get a good thesis statement down, but as you keep practicing, you'll be able to get it done in under a minute. Once you get good at writing these thesis statements and topic sentences to unfamiliar questions, you should then start practicing adapting your whole essay in timed conditions to an unfamiliar question, because this is ultimately what you'll be doing in the HSC, and you want to make sure that you can get this done in under 40 minutes. That time to adapt to the question is so important because it really shows the marker that you're engaging with the question and having that sophisticated understanding rather than just regurgitating a memorized essay. My next tip is to make sure that you spend enough time on paper 1 section 1, which is the short answer section. I used to never really think studying for this section was important because I thought you can't really study for it, it's just how the questions are on the day. But timed practice can really help you improve. I'd often do short answer practice when I needed a break from writing full essays, and I'd set myself a 40-minute timer and hand write these responses. Over time with practice, you get so much quicker at spotting techniques and linking their effect to the question. If you're looking for extra help with how to answer short answer questions and how to spot techniques, I really recommend checking out the Jettle YouTube channel. They seriously helped me so much, and I could have not aced that section without them. Their videos made it all so much clearer and share really great tips on how to spot easy techniques even when you feel lost. For example, did you know you can just use modality or tone or emotive language as a technique if you're stuck? A tip that they also share that really helped me was the mark -1 rule, where if you have a 5 marker, you need to have 4 points of analysis. If you have a 6 marker, you need 5 points of analysis. You just take a look at the mark allocation and -1, and that's what the markers are looking for. Now, Module C is very different to all the other modules because you could be asked to write an imaginative, discursive, or persuasive text, and potentially a reflection statement on top of this. It can seem so overwhelming to even know where to start, but here's what I did. I had a creative piece that I memorized and I knew a short version and a long version. I'd write the long version if we weren't given a reflection statement, but if we did have to split up the 20 marks into a piece and a reflection, I would then write the short version. As for discursives and persuasive, I had a discursive piece that I could then adapt into a persuasive by changing the modality, and also had a reflection statement ready for this one too if needed. As for what to write about, I based my compositions on general themes that were evident in my prescribed text, such as life and death, growing older, or the art of writing. The HSC may ask you to make direct links to your prescribed text in your composition, so I found that this was a good safety net. But even if the HSC doesn't ask you to do this, these themes are often applicable to a wide range of stimuli that they could ask you in the HSC. So it's just a good idea to have that in case, but if not, it just gives you an idea of what to write about anyway. Basing your pieces on a general theme or a writing style that's evident in your prescribed text is also what Module C is all about, because you can look at your prescribed text and see how the author crafts their language, and you can take some inspiration from what they've done too. I also found reflection statements kind of hard to understand at first, so I really recommend checking out that HSC exam workbook from Nessa that I suggested before, because that gave me a really good idea of what reflection statements look like and how much you can actually get down in the time limit. So, in summary, if you're feeling like English isn't your subject, please don't give up. I genuinely never thought I would break past an 80, and I ended up getting a 90 in the final HSC exam. Improvement is never out of reach, and I really hope that this could give you some encouragement and some practical tips to help you out. Keep practicing, keep asking for feedback, keep working hard, and I promise that you too can improve just as I did. If this was able to help you out, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment any other questions or video suggestions you have below. I really appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!